Hana's Suitcase is a true story that takes place on 3 continents over a period of almost 70 years. It brings together the experiences of a girl and her family in Czechoslovakia in the 1930s and 40s, a young woman and a group of children in Tokyo, Japan, and a man in Toronto, Canada in modern times. Between 1939 and 1945, the world was at war. Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler wanted Germany to rule the globe. At the center of his vision was the brutal elimination of the Jewish people from the face of the earth. To get rid of his enemies, he set up dozens of prison camps, called concentration camps, across Europe. Jewish women, men, and children from almost every country on the continent were deported. They were torn from their homes and sent to the camps, where they endured terrible suffering. Many people died of hunger and disease. Most were murdered. In these death camps and elsewhere, where Hitler's followers carried out his terrible plan, 6 million Jews were killed. 1.5 million Jewish children were among them. In 1945, the war ended and the entire world learned the horrors of what had gone on in the concentration camps. Since then, people have been trying to understand more about what is today known as the Holocaust, the worst example of mass murder or genocide in human history. How did it happen? How can we make sure it will never happen again? In Japan, a country allied with Nazi Germany during the Second World War, attention to the history of the Holocaust is relatively new. An anonymous Japanese donor, who wanted to contribute to global tolerance and understanding, decided it was important for young people in Japan to learn more about this episode of world history. Single-handedly, this donor has opened the Tokyo Holocaust Education Resource Center, which is dedicated to this purpose. At a children's forum on the Holocaust held in 1999, 200 students from schools in the Tokyo area met Holocaust survivor Yafa Iliak. She told them about how almost every Jew in her village, young and old, was murdered by the Nazis. At the end of her talk, she reminded her audience that children have the power to create peace in the future. A dozen of the young Japanese people there took her challenge to heart and formed a group called Small Wings. Now the members of Small Wings, aged 8 to 18, meet every month. They publish a newsletter, help run the Tokyo Holocaust Education Resource Center, and work to interest other Japanese children in the history of the Holocaust. They do their work under the guidance of Fumiko Ishioka, the director of the Tokyo Holocaust Center. The Suitcase, Hana's Suitcase, is a key to the success of their mission. In it lies a story of terrible sadness and great joy, a reminder of the brutality of the past and of hope for the future. Tokyo, Japan, winter 2000. Really, it's a very ordinary-looking suitcase. A little tattered around the edges, but in good condition. It's brown. It's big. You could fit quite a lot in it, clothes for a long trip, maybe. Books, games, treasures, toys. But there is nothing inside it now. Everyday children come to a little museum in Tokyo, Japan to see the suitcase. It sits in a glass cabinet. And through the glass you can see that there is writing on the suitcase. In white paint, across the front, there is a girl's name, Hana Brady. A date of birth, May 16, 1931. And one other word, Waisenkind. That's the German word for orphan. The Japanese children know that the suitcase came from Auschwitz, a concentration camp where millions of people suffered and died during the Second World War between 1939 and 1945. But who was Hana Brady? Where did she come from? Where was she traveling to? What did she pack? How did she become an orphan? What kind of girl was she, and what happened to her? The children are full of questions. So is the director of the museum, a slender young woman with long black hair named Fumiko Ishioka. Fumiko and the children gently take the suitcase out of the glass case and open it. They search the side pockets. Maybe Hana left something that would be a clue. Nothing. They look under the polka dot lining. There are no hints there either. Fumiko promises the children to do everything she can to find out about the girl who owned the suitcase, to solve the mystery. And for the next year, she becomes a detective, scouring the world for clues to the story of Hana Brady. Hana's Suitcase. Though she spelled her name with one N, the German spelling has two, as on the suitcase. Nove Mesto na Morave, Czechoslovakia, 1930s. In rolling hills in the middle of what was then Czechoslovakia, in a province called Moravia, there was a town called Nové Mesto na Moravě. It wasn't big, but it was famous. And in the winter, especially, it was a very busy place. People from all over the country came to cross-country ski in Nové Mesto na Moravě. There were races to be raced, there were trails to be blazed, and there were frozen ponds for skating. In the summer, there was swimming, sailing, fishing, and camping. Nové Mesto na Moravě was home to 4,000 people. Once the town was well known for making glass. But in the 1930s, people worked in the forests and in little workshops that made skis. On the main street, there was a large, two-story white building. It had a two-story attic. And in its basement, a secret passageway led to a church on the town's main square. In olden days, when the town was under siege, it was used by soldiers to store food and supplies for the people of Nové Mesto na Moravě. The town's general store was on the ground floor. There, you could buy almost anything: buttons, jam, oil lamps and rakes, sleigh bells, stones for sharpening knives, dishes, paper and pens, and candy. On the second floor lived the Brady family: Father Karel, Mother Marketa, Hana, and her big brother George. Father worked 6 days a week in the store. He was an athlete, known to almost everyone in Nové Mesto na Moravě for his love of soccer, skiing, and gymnastics. He was also an amateur actor with a big booming voice that could be heard from one end of a playing field to the other. Because of this, Father was chosen to call the cross-country ski races over a megaphone so that everyone could hear the action. He was a volunteer firefighter who, with other men from the town, rode the fire engine to help people in emergencies. The Brady family opened their home to artists of all kinds: musicians, painters and poets, sculptors and actors. When they were hungry, they could always find a hot meal produced by Boschka, the family housekeeper and cook. And their artistic talents found an eager audience, which, of course, included 2 impish children, Hana and George. Sometimes George was called upon to play violin in the middle of the living room while Hana's record player, which was cranked up by hand. Hana played her favorite song, "I Have 9 Canaries," over and over again. Hana in costume for a school play. Mother was a warm and generous hostess with a good sense of humor and a very loud laugh. She, too, worked 6 days a week in the store, and people often came in just to hear her jokes and banter. She paid special attention to poor people in Nové Mesto na Moravě who lived on the outskirts of town. Once a week, she would prepare a bundle of food and clothing that Hana would deliver to needy neighbors. Hana was very proud of her mission, and she nagged her mother to make care packages more often. Hana was a helper in the store, too. From the time they were very small, Hana and George had the job of keeping the shelves stocked, clean and tidy. They learned how to slice yeast, chisel small lumps off the sugar loaf, weigh spices and seasonings, and twist paper into the shape of hollow cones to be filled with candy and sold as treats. Once in a while, Mother noticed that some of those candy cones were missing. Hana never told on George, and he never told on Hana. Nové Mesto na Moravě. The Brady family lived on the second floor of the 4th building from the left. Their store was on the main floor. There were always cats around the store, who worked full-time as mouse catchers. But once, as a special treat, Mother and Father ordered fluffy, white Angora kittens as pets for the children. 2 soft little bundles arrived through the mail in a box with breathing holes. At first, Silva, the family wolfhound, a huge gray furry creature, sniffed around them suspiciously. But soon the kittens, who Hana named Mickey and Murek, became accepted members of the family. Hana and George went to the public school. They were average kids who got into regular mischief and had the usual problems and triumphs. There was just one thing that was different about them. The Bradys were Jewish. They weren't a religious family, but Mother and Father wanted the children to know about their heritage. Once a week, while their playmates were at church, Hana and George sat with a special teacher who taught them about Jewish holidays and Jewish history. There were few other Jewish families in Nové Mesto na Moravě, but Hana and George were the only Jewish children in the town. In their early years, no one really noticed or cared that they were different. Soon, though, the fact that they were Jews would become the most important thing about them.